It's now been 1 month since Lilly and Jack Sullivan disappeared from the home they were living in Nova Scotia. Their so-called stepdad, Daniel Martell, told the CBC that he can't but feel angry that there is still no evidence 4 weeks after Lilly and Jack vanished. Martell has said that the disappearance has taken a toll on him and his family. He said, quote, "Every day when I wake up, it feels like I'm reliving a nightmare. The main feelings of sadness just turn to anger because there's no evidence after 1 month," end quote. But Daniel also says he's hanging on to hope that Jack and Lilly will be brought home. He doesn't say that they will come home. He says that they will be brought home. There's a very subtle difference there, maybe not so subtle. Kids coming home of their own volition, able to come home, and kids perhaps being brought home because they may not be alive. He continues to say that he took and passed a polygraph, and he reasons that because of this, people can't point fingers at him any longer. But note that the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, have declined to say whether Martell was even polygraphed. We've heard other people in other missing kids cases, case in point, Chris Proudfoot, say that he and Katie passed their polygraphs, but we haven't heard law enforcement say that. Daniel Martell also addressed rumors that there was a party at his house prior to Lilly and Jack going missing. He told the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, quote, "There was no drug party the day before the disappearance. That's absolute nonsense." He also clarified that the camera footage showing Lilly and Jack in public on the afternoon of Thursday, May 1st, came from somewhere in New Glasgow. And it showed him, Malia, the mother, Lilly, Jack, and Meadow, the baby. But Martell would not disclose the actual location. Now, the distance between New Glasgow and Gairloch Road in Pictou County, where the kids were living and where they disappeared from, is 23.2 kilometers, which comes to 14.478 miles. And that would translate roughly into a 20-minute car ride. New Glasgow, from what I read, is the commercial center of Pictou County, and it's where residents typically go to do their grocery shopping. New Glasgow has a Highland Square Mall, as well as the New Glasgow Farmers Market, and there are several grocery stores there as well, including one called Giant Tiger, which is for budget-conscious shopping. So this would be the place where the family would likely go to get groceries, maybe gas for the car. So it's possible that the family was grocery shopping that day, despite Lilly being kept home, allegedly, due to a sore throat. In thinking about what could have happened to Lilly and Jack, I started to wonder about the statistics related to young kids living with a non-biological parent. I discovered that, according to experts, kids living with a non-biological parent, and in particular, a mother's boyfriend or a mother's new husband, those kids are statistically at a significantly higher risk of DV compared to kids living with both of their biological parents. A 1994 study by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services found that children living with one biological parent and that parent's partner, a non-biological adult, were 8 times more likely to suffer serious harm from some sort of abuse in the home. And they were 40 times more likely to be unalived than kids living with both biological parents. And according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Child Maltreatment 2022 report, mothers' boyfriends were disproportionately found to be the perpetrators in child maltreatment unalivings. Researchers cite something called the Cinderella effect, or the step-parent effect. This effect suggests that stepchildren are at a higher risk because non-biological adults may lack the same instinctive caregiving drive for these kids that are not theirs biologically. My dad actually lost his mother when he was just 2 years old, and he was raised by a stepmother, and I can tell you for a fact he did not receive the same nurturing that her biological children did. She never read to him. He was always wearing the clothes with the holes in them compared to the biological children that she had with my dad's father. And I always call my dad Cinderella for this reason. Now, there's also a Canadian study from 2005 that found similar trends, meaning children with a non-biological adult in the home were at an increased risk of physical mistreatment and SA. Studies also show that stepfathers or unrelated males living in the same house with the children are more likely than biological fathers to commit SA against children in the household. Here's another shocking statistic. In 2023, the United States recorded an estimated 546,159 victims of child abuse and neglect, equating to a rate of 7.4 victims per 1,000 children. Children living with a step-parent are 3 times more likely to experience DV or some sort of abuse in the home compared to kids with both biological parents in the home. And girls living with a stepfather are 5 times more likely to be victims of SA than those living with their biological fathers. So Lilly and Jack Sullivan, the minute they began living in a home with their mother's partner, Daniel Martell, were suddenly at a much greater risk of being mistreated and potentially unalived by a non-biological adult. Given that the police don't seem to be putting much weight into the kids being nabbed, and given that the mother, Malia Brooks Murray, has stopped communicating with her partner Daniel Martell, it seems possible and perhaps even probable that Lilly and Jack may have been subjected to mistreatment of some sort at the hands of their so-called stepfather. Yes, Martell has given the most on-camera statements. Yes, he's come out to say that he passed a polygraph, but those may be actions and words that he says and does that are designed to make him look like the adult without anything to hide. What if law enforcement never comes out to say that he took a polygraph and never says that he passed it? That's a possibility. Words in these cases of missing children are cheap. It's what comes out as fact and truth and evidence that matters. And note that psychopaths can sometimes pass polygraphs more easily than the average person because of how their brains and nervous systems function, especially in relationship to emotional arousal, fear, and guilt. And those are the core mechanisms that polygraphs rely on. Psychopaths typically have reduced fear and anxiety, which means that they don't exhibit strong physiological reactions to lying. Bottom line, if there's no internal stress from lying, the polygraph won't register deception. As for Lilly and Jack Sullivan, I fear they may have been harmed in that house they were living in. After all, as the 2 non-biological kids living with Martell, Lilly and Jack both disappeared, but the biological child of Daniel Martell with Malia Brooks Murray, baby Meadow, did not vanish, and Martell showed a desire to see Meadow after she was removed from the house. And when it came to Lilly and Jack, Martell was asking about bringing in cadaver dogs. I fear, therefore, that Lilly and Jack may have been victims of the Cinderella effect. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe. This is T of Bed Crime Stories, and I will see you next time. Have a great weekend, and I hope you're all well. See ya.